Y'all, this is my 2K giveaway, and y'all, I just put my teeth in and wanting to slip. I bet you this weighs 20 pounds or more. And I didn't even get as much in as I wanted to. I got a little bit of room here in these corners, but I'm scared my zipper was going to break. So I may just have to stop. Didn't get as much in of everything as I wanted to, but it's still a lot. Well, you could imagine. Oh my goodness. So let me just set this over here. Y'all know. Y'all are privileged people. You get to see stuff first. Just wanted you to know that. I think I've told you before. Anywho, let's get on with our reading for today. Let's see, I guess we were in whatever chapter this. Wait a minute. No, we were at the. Okay, we're starting a new chapter. Sorry about my teeth. They're wanting to slip. Chapter 21, Sweetness Lavender. School opened and Anne returned to her work with fewer theories but considerably more experience. God. It makes me sound funny when I read. She had several new pupils, 6 and 7-year-olds, just venturing round-eyed into a world of wonder. Among them were Davy and Dora. Davy sat with Milty Bolter, who had been going to school for a year and was therefore quite a man of the world. Dora had made a compact at Sunday school the previous Sunday. Compact? To sit with Lily Sloan, but Lily Sloan not coming the first day, she was temporarily assigned to Mirabelle Cotton. I'm just laughing because I think that's a kind of yarn from Hobium or somewhere, or it's something like that. Who was 10 years old and therefore, in Dora's eyes, one of the big girls. I think school is great fun, Davy told Marilla when he got home that night. You said I'd find it hard to sit still, and I did. You mostly do tell the truth, I noticed, but you can wriggle your legs about under your desk, and that helps a lot. It's splendid to have so many boys to play with. I sit with Milty Bolter, and he's fine. He's longer than me, but I'm wider. It's nicer to sit in the back seats, but you can't sit there till your legs grow long enough to touch the floor. Milty drawed a picture of Anne on his slate, and it was awful ugly, and I told him if he made pictures of Anne like that, I'd lick him at recess. I thought first I'd draw one of him and put horns and a tail on it, but I was afraid it would hurt his feelings, and Anne says you should never hurt anyone's feelings. It seems it's dreadful to have your feelings hurt. It's better to knock a boy down than hurt his feelings if you must do something. Milty said he wasn't scared of me, but he'd just as soon call it somebody else to oblige me. So he rubbed out Anne's name and printed Barbara Shaw's under it. Milty doesn't like Barbara because she calls him a sweet little boy, and once she patted him on his head. Dora said primly that she liked school, but she was very quiet even for her, and when at twilight Marilla bade her go upstairs to bed, she hesitated and began to cry. I'm frightened, she sobbed. I don't want to go upstairs alone in the dark. What notion have you got into your head now? Demanded Marilla. I'm sure you've gone to bed alone all summer and never been frightened before. Dora still continued to cry, so Anne picked her up, cuddled her sympathetically, and whispered, Tell Anne all about it, sweetheart. What are you frightened of? Of Mirabelle Cotton's uncle, sobbed Dora. Mirabelle Cotton told me all about her family today in school. Nearly everybody in her family has died. All her grandfathers and grandmothers and ever so many uncles and aunts, they have a habit of dying, Mirabelle says. Mirabelle's awful proud of having so many dead relations, and she told me what they all died of and what they said and how they looked in their coffins. And Mirabelle says one of her uncles was seen walking around the house after he was buried. Her mother saw him. I don't mind the rest so much, but I can't help thinking about that uncle. Anne went upstairs with Dora and sat by her until she fell asleep. The next day, Mirabelle Cotton was kept in at recess and gently but firmly given to understand that when you were so unfortunate as to possess an uncle who persisted in walking about houses after he'd been decently interred, it was not in good taste to talk about that eccentric gentleman to your desk mate of tender years. It's a mouthful to say. Don't talk about scary stuff. Mirabelle thought this very harsh. The Cottons had not much to boast of. How was she able to keep up her prestige among her schoolmates if she were forbidden to make capital out of the family ghost? September slipped by into a golden crimson graciousness of October. One Friday evening, Diana came over. I had a letter from Ella Kimball today, Anne, and she wants us to go over to tea tomorrow afternoon to meet her cousin, Irene Trent, from town. But we can't get one of our horses to go, for they'll all be in use tomorrow, and your pony is lame, so I suppose we can't go. Why can't we walk? Suggested Anne. If we go straight back through the woods, we'll strike the West Grifton Road, not far from the Kimball place. I was through that way last winter, and I know the road. It's no more than 4 miles, and we won't have to walk home, for Oliver Kimball will be sure to drive us. He'll be only too good of the excuse, for he goes to see Carrie Sloane, and they say his father will hardly ever let him have a horse. It was accordingly arranged that they should walk, and the following afternoon they set out, going by way of Lover's Lane to the back of the Cuthbert farm, where they found a road leading into the heart of acres of glimmering beech and maple woods, which were all in a wondrous glow of flame and gold, lying in a great purple stillness and peace. Oh, I bet that's so pretty. I love the fall. Is my favorite season because the air is starting to get crisp and all the beautiful colors. And that's when I like autumnal colors. Even wear them in the summer. But I do like my corals and teals, and heck, I like all the colors. Y'all know. Y'all know. Probably just like y'all. Okay. They should walk with stillness and peace. It's as if the year were kneeling to pray in a vast cathedral full of mellow-stained light, isn't it? Said Anne dreamily. It doesn't seem right to hurry through it, does it? It seems irreverent, like running in church. We must hurry, though, said Diana, glancing at her watch. We've left ourselves little enough time as it is. Well, I'll walk fast, but don't ask me to talk, said Anne, quickening her pace. I just want to drink the day's loveliness in. I feel as if she were holding it out to my lips like a cup of airy wine, and I'll take a sip at every step. Perhaps it was because she was so absorbed in drinking it in that Anne took the left turning when they came to a fork in the road. She should have taken the right. But ever afterward she counted it the most fortunate mistake of her life. They came out finally to a lonely grassy road with nothing in sight along it but ranks of spruce saplings. Why, where are we? Exclaimed Diana in bewilderment. This isn't the West Grafton Road. No, it's the baseline road in Middle Grafton, said Anne rather shamefacedly. I must have taken the wrong turn at the fork. I don't know where we are exactly, but we must be all of 3 miles from Kimball still. Then we can't get there by 5, for it's 4:30 now, said Diana with a despairing look at her watch. We'll arrive after they've had their tea, and they'll have all the bother of getting ours over again. We'd better turn back and go home, suggested Anne humbly, but Diana, after consideration, vetoed this. No, we may as well go and spend the evening since we've come this far. A few yards further on, the girls came to a place where the road forked again. Which of these do we take? Asked Diana dubiously. Anne shook her head. I don't know, and we can't afford to make any more mistakes. Here is a gate and a lane leading right into the wood. There must be a house at the other side. Let us go down and inquire. What a romantic old lane this is, said Diana as they walked along its twists and turns. It ran under patriarchal old firs whose branches met above, creating a perpetual gloom in which nothing except moss could grow. On either hand were brown wood floors, crossed here and there by falling lances of sunlight. All was very still and remote, as if the world and the cares of the world were far away. I feel as if we were walking through an enchanted forest, said Anne in a hushed tone. Do you suppose we'll ever find our way back to the real world again, Diana? We shall presently come to a palace with a spellbound princess in it, I think. Around the next turn they came in sight, not indeed of a palace, but of a little house almost as surprising as a palace would have been in this province of conventional wooden farmhouses, all as much alike in general characteristics as if they had grown from the same seed. Anne stopped short in rapture, and Diana exclaimed, Oh, I know where we are now. That's the little stone house where Miss Lavender Lewis lives. Echo Lodge, she calls it. I think I've heard of it, but I've never seen it before. Isn't it a romantic spot? Y'all remember that story? It's the sweetest, prettiest place I ever saw or imagined, said Anne delightedly. It looks like a little bit out of a storybook or a dream. The house was a low-eaved structure built of undressed blocks of Red Island sandstone and a little peaked roof out of which peered 2 dormer windows, with quaint wooden hoods over them and 2 great chimneys. The whole house was covered with a luxuriant growth of ivy, finding easy foothold on the rough stonework and turned by autumn frost to the most beautiful bronze and wine red tints. Before the house was an oblong garden into which the lane gate, where the girls were standing, opened. The house abounded on one side, and on the 3 others it was enclosed by an old stone dike, so overgrown with moss and grass and ferns that it looked like a high green bank. On the right and left, the tall, dark spruces spread their palm-like branches over it, but below it was a little meadow, green with clover aftermath, sloping down to the blue loop of the Grafton River. No other house or clearing was in sight, nothing but hills and valleys covered with feathery young firs. I wonder what sort of person Miss Lewis is, speculated Diana as they opened the gate into the garden. They say she's very peculiar. I think this is who I'm thinking of, maybe not. She'll be interesting then, said Anne decidedly. Peculiar people are always that, at least, whatever else they are or are not. Didn't I tell you we would come to an enchanted palace? I knew that elves hadn't woven magic over that lane for nothing. But Miss Lavender Lewis is hardly a spellbound princess, laughed Diana. She's an old maid. She's 48. 45. An old maid. Well, he could be an old maid, I guess. And quite gray, I've heard. Oh, that's only part of the spell, asserted Anne confidently. At heart, she's young and beautiful still, and if we only knew how to unloose the spell, she would step forth radiant and fair again, but we don't know how. It's always and only the prince who knows that, and Miss Lavender's prince hasn't come yet. Perhaps some fatal mischance has befallen him, though that's against the law of all the fairy tales. I'm afraid he came long ago and went away again, said Diana. They say she used to be engaged to Stephen Irving, Paul's father, when they were young, but they quarreled and parted. Hush, warned Anne, the door is open. The girls paused in the porch under the tendrils of ivy and knocked at the open door. There was a patter of steps inside, and a rather odd little personage presented itself. A girl of about 14 with a freckled face, a snub nose, a mouth so wide that it did really seem as if it stretched from ear to ear, and two long braids of fair hair tied with two enormous bows of blue ribbon. "Is Miss Lewis at home?" asked Diana. "Yes, ma'am. Come in, ma'am. I'll tell Miss Lavender you're here, ma'am. She's upstairs, ma'am." With this, the small handmaiden whisked out of sight, and the girls, left alone, looked about them with delighted eyes. The interior of this wonderful little house was quite as interesting as its exterior. The room had a low ceiling and two square, small-paned windows curtained with muslin frills. All the furnishings were old-fashioned, but so well and daintily kept that the effect was delicious. But it must be candidly admitted that the most attractive feature to two healthy girls who had just tramped 4 miles through autumn air was a table set out with pale blue china and laden with delicacies, while little golden-hued ferns scattered over the cloth gave it what Anne would have termed a festal air. "Miss Lavender must be expecting company to tea," she whispered. "There are 6 places set, but what a funny little girl she has. She looked like a messenger from Pixieland. I suppose she could have told us the road, but I was curious to see Miss Lavender. Shh, she's coming." And with that, Miss Lavender Lewis was standing in the doorway. The girls were so surprised they forgot their good manners and simply stared. They had unconsciously been expecting to see the usual type of elderly spinster, as known to their experience, a rather angular personage with prim gray hair and spectacles. Nothing more unlike Miss Lavender could possibly be imagined. She was a little lady with snow-white hair, beautifully wavy and thick and carefully arranged in becoming puffs and coils. Beneath it was almost girlish face, pink-cheeked and sweet-lipped, with big soft brown eyes and dimples, actual dimples. She wore a very dainty gown of cream muslin with pale-hued roses on it, a gown which would have seemed ridiculously juvenile on most women of her age, but which suited Miss Lavender so perfectly that you never thought about it at all. "Charlotta the Fourth says that you wish to see me," she said in a voice that matched her appearance. Charlotta the Fourth. "We wanted to ask the right road to West Grafton," said Diana. "We were invited to tea at Mr. Kimball's, but we took the wrong path, coming through the woods, and came out to the baseline instead of West Grafton Road. Do we take the right or the left turn at your gate?" "The left," said Miss Lavender, with a hesitating glance at her tea table. Then she exclaimed, as if a sudden little burst of resolution, "But oh, won't you stay and have tea with me? Please do. Mr. Kimball's will have tea over before you get there, and Charlotta the Fourth and I will be so glad to have you." Diana looked mute. Diana looked mute inquiry at Anne. "We'd like to stay," said Anne promptly, for she had made up her mind that she wanted to know more of the surprising Miss Lavendar. "If it won't inconvenience you, but you are expecting other guests, aren't you?" Miss Lavendar looked at her tea table again and blushed. "I know you'll think me dreadfully foolish," she said. "I am foolish, and I'm ashamed of it when I'm found out, but never unless I am found out. I'm not expecting anyone. I was just pretending I was. You see, I was so lonely. I have company, that is the right kind of company. But so few people ever come here because it's so far out of the way. Charlotta the Fourth was only 2, so I just pretended I was going to have a tea party. I cooked for it and decorated the table for it and set it with my mother's wedding china, and I dressed up for it." Diana secretly thought Miss Lavendar quite as peculiar as report had pictured her. The idea of a woman 45 playing at having a tea party just as if she were a little girl. But Anne of the shining eyes exclaimed joyfully, "Oh, do you imagine things too?" That too revealed a kindred spirit to Miss Lavendar. "Yes, I do," she confessed boldly. "Of course, it's silly in anybody as old as I am, but what's the use of being an independent old maid if you can't be silly when you want to, and when it doesn't hurt anybody? A person must have some compensations. I don't believe I could live at times if I didn't pretend things. I'm not often caught at it, though, and Charlotta the Fourth never tells. But I'm glad to be caught today, for you have really come, and I have tea all ready for you. Will you go up to the spare room and take off your hats? It's the white door at the head of the stairs. I must run out to the kitchen and see that Charlotta the Fourth isn't letting the tea boil. Charlotta the Fourth is a very good girl, but she will let the tea boil." Miss Lavendar tripped off to the kitchen on hospitable thoughts intent, and the girls found their way up to the spare room, an apartment as white as its door, lighted by the ivy-hung dormer window, and looking, as Anne said, like the place where happy dreams grew. I bet it's pretty. "This is quite an adventure, isn't it?" said Diana. "And isn't Miss Lavendar sweet? If she is a little odd, she doesn't look a bit like an old maid. She looks just as music sounds, I think," answered Anne. When they went down, Miss Lavendar was carrying in the teapot, and behind her, looking vastly pleased, was Charlotta the Fourth with a plate of hot biscuits. "Now you must tell me your names," said Miss Lavendar. "I'm so glad you are young girls. I love young girls. It's so easy to pretend I'm a girl myself when I'm with them. I do hate," with a little grimace, "to believe I'm old. Now, who are you? Just for convenience sake. Diana Barry and Anne Shirley. May I pretend that I've known you for 100 years and call you Anne and Diana right away?" "You may," the girls said both together. Then let's sit comfortably down and eat everything," said Miss Lavendar happily. "Charlotta, you sit," said Miss Lavendar happily. "Charlotta, you sit at the foot, and help with the chicken. It's so fortunate that I made the sponge cake and donuts. Of course, it was foolish to do it for imaginary guests. I know Charlotta the Fourth thought so, didn't you, Charlotta? But you see how well it has turned out. Of course, they wouldn't have been wasted, for Charlotta the Fourth and I could have eaten them through time. But sponge cake is not a thing that improves with time. That was a merry and memorable meal, and when it was over, they all went out to the garden, lying in the glamour of sunset. I do take you have the loveliest place here, said Flora, looking round her admiringly. Why do you call it Echo Lodge? Asked Anne. Okay, sorry, lost my spot for a minute. Charlotta, said Miss Lavender, go into the house and bring out the little tin horn that's hanging over the clock shelf. Charlotta the Fourth skipped off and returned with the horn. Blow it, Charlotta, commanded Miss Lavender. Charlotta accordingly blew a rather raucous, strident blast. There was a moment's stillness, and then from the woods over the river came a multitude of fairy echoes, sweet, elusive, silvery, as if all the horns of Elfland were blowing against the sunset. Anne and Diana exclaimed in delight. I think I need to have my eyes checked. Even when I'm not sleepy, the lines kind of go together and do weird stuff. My stigmatism, I guess. There were moments stillness, and Diana exclaimed in delight. Now laugh, Charlotta, laugh loudly. Charlotta, who would probably have obeyed if Miss Lavender had told her to stand on her head, climbed upon the stone bench and laughed loud and heartily. Back came the echo, as if a host of pixie people were mimicking her laughter in the purple woodland and along the fir-fringed points. People always admire my echoes very much. Very much, said Miss Lavender, as if the echoes were her personal property. I love them myself. They're very good company, with a little pretending. On calm evenings, Charlotta the Fourth and I often sit out here and amuse ourselves with them. Charlotta, take back the horn and hang it carefully in its place. And I'm going to have to stop right there, guys. It's just a lot of reading. Let's see how much more we got to go. Not too much, but more than I can do for right now. So I'll read part 2 tomorrow. Have a happy Saturday. It is Saturday, isn't it? I hope you saw my 2K giveaway video and entered. Make sure your settings are on public. And join me today live at Tea at 3. Tea at 3 with me. And that's Eastern time, so whatever time that is for you. And be sweet. Don't be ugly. See you later, gators. Squirrels.